If you have a Ram 1500 from the year ranges 2019 and up and you want better fog lights, you gotta check out the Morimoto 4Banger. This is literally the brightest LED off-road pod light out there when you choose the wide beam pattern. I'm gonna show you how to mount this in the Morimoto brackets in the front bumper. I'm gonna give you some tips and tricks along the way. Follow me, let's get started. Now before I get to the install, let me tell you why we think this is truly the best and brightest LED pod light on the market. First things first, there's two pod lights that you need to be aware of. The entry level, which Morimoto calls the NCS pod, they use Nichia chips and it's super bright, has the same beam pattern as their higher end model, the HXB or HX Boost. They use an OSRAM chip. Those things are stupid bright. And if you get the beam pattern that is a white wide version, it is the brightest one that we have ever tested here at Headlight Revolution. Now the NCS and the HXB both come in three different beam patterns. They have the wide beam pattern, they have a combo beam pattern, and they have a spotlight beam pattern. All three beam patterns are great, however the one that decimates all is the wide version. 80% or more of our customers buy the white wide version, so that is definitely something to consider, especially if you're gonna mount it in something like a fog light. Now if you wanna see how these pod lights stack up against the rest of the competitors out there, Chris Nelson does an in-depth review where he compares these against Style Dynamics, Rigid Industries, and so on. So if you wanna see how we came to the conclusion of these being the best, be sure to watch that video. Now all of these pod lights and all the driving beam patterns come with either an amber version or a white version. So the higher end OSRAM chips that are used in the HXB 4Bangers, those are a more yellow look. And when you use the NCS 4Bangers, they look a little bit more amber. That's because the NCS uses those Nichia chips. And Nichia chips, they do come in a yellow, whereas the OSRAM chips do not come in a yellow. One thing to note, in all of our testing, the amber versions always came in slightly less than the white versions. That's because the light passing through that yellow lens, it loses a little bit of its luminosity. Since the NCS chip, that entry-level 4Banger, uses a yellow chip passing through the yellow lens, it doesn't quite lose as much lumens. So that is something to consider. The best part about these LED pod lights is if you choose the wide beam pattern and put them in your fog lights, they are completely SAE compliant, no matter if you choose the NCS version or the HXB. That is no small task, and I could not be more excited to present something that's truly SAE compliant. What about the reliability? With all of the testing that we have done so far, we have not had any issues. They have an IP69K rating, which means they're totally waterproof. Also, they have a limited lifetime warranty, so they've got to be pretty good. As far as dimming down goes, when you guys are driving at over 4.5 miles an hour, you actually don't lose as much loss of light as you will see in some of our testing or in our other videos. So be sure to note that they don't actually lose but 8% of the brightness when you're driving over 4.5 miles per hour. The last thing to note about these 4Bangers real quick is that they have about a 30% smaller footprint than that of all of the competitors out there. So if you're mounting them in, say, one of the custom brackets on the front bumper in any of your vehicles, they're gonna fit so much better, like an OEM plus look. Now let me show you guys against our headlight wall what these look like compared to your stock halogen bulbs. This right here is your stock halogen fog lights, and as you can tell, they hardly show up on camera. It doesn't do anything. This is the last thing you want when it comes to a fog light. It's got that dingy looking color, it's not wide, it's not gonna help you see in the ditches when you're going down the road. Now let's show you what the white wide version of the 4Banger looks like in the fog lights on this Ram. As you can see, it is extremely bright, but it's not just the brightness that matters here. Look at the width. The width compared to the stock fog lights is incredible. This is gonna actually help you see when you're driving down the road and you need to see into the ditches. Now let's get to the install. Before that, let's show you what tools you need. In today's video, you will need some Allen wrenches, a T10 Torx bit, an 8mm socket, a 7mm socket, an extension. This will help you a little bit when you're putting the fog light into the bumper itself, and a ratchet. If you want to, you can go ahead and use a drill ratchet as well. Now that you've decided the Morimoto 4Bangers are right for your Ram, let's get to the install. First thing we're gonna do is actually build the 4Banger into the Morimoto bracket itself. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and flip the 4Banger over. We're gonna go ahead and remove the two screws on the top side of the 4Banger. The top side, I wanna point out, is the side with two LEDs on the top. I have seen retrofits with the 4Bangers in it where this was upside down. Just stop doing that. It goes this way. All right, back to the game plan. Take your T10 Torx, remove these 2 screws. We are replacing these 2 screws with longer bolts. Go ahead and remove those. Now go ahead and grab this. This is the metal bracket. We're gonna mount this on top of the 4Banger. Then we're gonna take those 2 longer screws with that blue Loctite. They look like this. Go ahead and put those in place of those screws you just took out. So both of those screws are in. Now go ahead and take this little black clip. It looks like this. We're gonna put it into that part you just installed. And this is where your adjustment screw is gonna lie. Now we're gonna go ahead and sandwich the 4Banger between the 2 pieces of plastic. Go ahead and take this piece first and route it through the backside. Now go ahead and take the faceplate and route this into the front. They should line up, and then you got 4 screws you're gonna have to put in here to keep these together. These 4 little screws also come in the kit, and they too are a T10 screw. Now all 4 screws are in. This is coming together now. What we're gonna do now is go ahead and put the adjustment screw in. But first you need to put in a little spring. This spring goes in the middle right here. So we're just gonna go ahead and push this in. Sits just like that. Now go ahead and take that adjustment screw. And we'll tighten it down. You don't have to worry too much about this adjustment screw right now. We're gonna go ahead and adjust it later once it's on the truck. If for some reason you can't just hand tighten it, you can go ahead and take an Allen wrench and then tighten it down as well. You don't need to tighten it down all the way. This is gonna be for your adjustment. Now all you gotta do is connect this little Deutsch connector. This is a Deutsch connector here. It's a waterproof connection, and this will allow you to connect the 4Banger to your factory wiring on your Ram. So go ahead and plug this Deutsch connector in real quick. Now that that's plugged in, do the exact same thing for the passenger side, and then I'll meet you over at the truck so I can show you how to install this. So let's go ahead and start with the install of the driver's side. We've got 3 8mm bolts right here, and I want to remove those first. You can just take those 3 off, pull this plastic piece back, and then reach up and do everything you need to do in the fog light area. I'm going to go ahead and remove these 2 screws over here as well, there and there, just so I can remove the entire plastic piece, give me a little bit more room so you guys can see what I'm doing. With all 5 of those bolts removed, you could just go ahead and pull this plastic piece away. With that removed, you can clearly see the fog light housing. So there's 3 7mm bolts you can see holding in that fog light. We're gonna go ahead and remove those 3 now. But before I remove those 3 bolts, let's go ahead and unplug this bulb. Pull this red tab down, and then you can go ahead and push this black tab in and give it a pull. With this 7mm bolt, I am gonna use an extension just to make life a little bit easier. You definitely do not have to. The cool part about this install is you could do this all with basic hand tools. And now you can just work it out. With this fog light removed, go ahead and grab your 4Banger bracket. Now we're gonna go ahead and mount this the exact same way you just took that one off. You got 3 screws here, and then don't forget to plug this in as well. Now putting this 4Banger back in here can get a little bit silly. We're gonna just finagle it until it works. Just be careful so you don't mar up the plastic around the outside. There we are. Now go ahead and put those bolts back in. Once the bolts are in, tighten them down. Don't forget to plug this back in. Make sure you hear it click, and then lock the red tab down, just like that. Now go ahead and do the other side and test it to make sure they work. Once they work properly and you've tested they work, go ahead and take all this wiring and zip tie it up. We can zip tie it right here or anywhere else you may see fit. Go ahead, find any wall and adjust them where you want height-wise. Again, to make it an SAE compliant, it needs to be leveled at a -3° aim. And just like that, you've successfully installed an LED pod light in the fog light area on your 19 Plus Ram. Now, this is amazing and it fits really well, but this right here is something that's absolutely terrible. You already know it. This is a halogen headlight, and in another video, I'm gonna show you how to install a Morimoto XB headlight to totally transform the front of this truck. The last thing you want is those dingy looking headlights on the front end of this thing when you've got these beautiful 4Bangers now installed. If you want to see what else we have to offer for your Ram, type in your year, make, and model at headlightrevolution.com and you'll find everything there.